I have one Korean female friend living in the UK. So she told me a little bit about it before. So I just became curious because of her stories, the way that she explained to me, like, this is how Korea is.
I've definitely heard a lot about this book. I know it's very controversial, so I kind of wanted to see what all the fuss was about and learn about how Koreans, and especially the author, views these issues.
From the very beginning, I thought that this book had something to do with, reverse sexism, because mostly men that were outraged with celebrities reading this book, or couples breaking up because they wanted to watch the movie and things like that.
Well, many people say that the book is only about the lives of women here in Korea, and of course that's the title and the main character. But I think it's about life in modern Korea in general, because many of the struggles and the difficulties that Jiyoung is going through, it also affects her husband, her family, her father, her mom, and everyone that's working with her. Of course, in different ways.
All right, thank you guys for coming today. It's a beautiful summer day. We are out in Yangpyeong enjoying the hot summer weather. I hope you guys are enduring the heat. Sarah?
I'm trying my best.
Yeah. Carlos, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. First time we see in person.
Yeah, that's right.
I've listened to you many times.
I've seen your face as well. You've been on quite a few shows here in Korea.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, newly married as well.
Yeah, it's been 3 months now.
Okay.
Yeah, enjoying the beginning of our new lives.
Yeah, beautiful. Daniel?
I mean, thanks for inviting me here, first of all. The coffee's great. It's beautiful here. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly, yeah. We have a big discussion, and I am excited to hear what your guys' opinions are about this book. But first, I wanted to ask one of the biggest questions that we all ask each other here in Korea.
Okay.
How old are you?
Oh.
Sarah, how old are you?
In American age, I am 24, and in Korean age, I'm 25.
Okay. Carlos, what year were you born?
Well, it's been a while. I was born in 86,
Okay.
1986, and now I'm 35 international age, 36 Korean age.
Okay, yeah. Daniel.
A little bit quite similar with me. I was born in 1989, so I'm also a child of the 80s, much like Kim Jiyoung. And yeah, I guess that makes me 33 in Korea, 31 in international.
You don't really look like a millennial or someone from the 80s.
You too. You too. You still look young. You still look young.
You're a nice guy.
All right, so we are going to talk about the millennial story since we are all millennials.
Yes.
I am 28.
28.
Which in Korea, I'm turning 30.
Oh.
Which is
my.
a big year, but as we know, millennials are people who are born from 1980s to the early 2000s, and we wanted to introduce this book called Kim Jiyoung, born 1982.
Yes.
82년생 김지영이 2016년도 10월에 출간이 됐고 그 이후로 지금까지 27개국 25개 언어로 번역이 됐어요. 그중에는 뭐 일본, 중국도 있고 서구권도 있고 아주 여러 나라들이 있고 이미 세계적으로는 이제 조남주의 독자들이 이제 생겨나고 있다라고 봐도 좋을 것 같고요.
The reason, I guess, that we're all millennials here is that we might be able to relate to it a little bit more, understand a little bit more, because she's a millennial. Because we're all from different countries as well.
We're both from the States, right?
Right. So we might have some different stories or different opinions to share as well, which I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, for all of us, I think it's quite a bit different here than it is where we're from. So yeah, let's be careful.
Be careful.
That itself says a lot, I think.
Sure. So Sarah, let's start with you. I mean, you read the book as well. What did you think about it?
I think it's definitely a conversation-worthy book. There's a lot in these short pages to kind of like dive into?
I really enjoyed the book. It was very easy to read, very comfortable, very, how can I say, light. When we are in Brazil, we think of our country as a macho society. It's very male-dominant society with inequality between genders that is way larger than in other countries, probably the US and more than England as well. But when I read the book, I felt like, well, Brazil, maybe it isn't that bad.
I'm going to be honest with you. I cried a little bit.
Yeah,
I did.
Wow.
Honestly, like, I didn't expect to be able to relate to it as much as I did, even though I'm not a Korean woman. I could sort of feel her pain, and it, like, I shed a tear, and I was like, wow, like, this is a bit more, you know, serious than I thought it was.
Yeah, this came out around 2016.
Right.
And that was along the time when the Me Too movement was kind of gaining a bit more momentum, especially here in Korea as well. And so many people, I would say, felt a bit threatened in a very male-dominated society, you know, in many places around the world. But perhaps that's the reason why it's been such a bestseller, not only here in Korea, but in so many different countries in Asia as well. So I wanted to take a look and do a bit of a reading. If you guys are up for it, to do a little narration.
All right.
아유 잘했어. 아유 잘했어. 아빠 왔다. 아빠?
내가 목욕시키려고 일찍 왔는데.
지영 씨 부족해서 그런 거 아니야. 지영아, 너 하고픈 거 해.
Read a few of the stories.
Interesting. Okay. I prepared my narration voice. I'll try my best.
Your acting caps on.
Yes. Ooh. High school acting class. Hopefully works out. What is this nonsense?
Dae-hyun tried to explain, but he didn't know how to start.
Mr. Jiyoung, with all due respect, I must say my piece.
Jiyoung said in a cool tone, pushing Dae-hyun aside.
As you know, the families are a time for families together. But they're not just for your family, they're for my family too. Everyone's so busy nowadays, and it's hard for my children to get together too, if not for just the holidays. You should at least let our daughter come home when your daughter comes to visit you.
In the end, Dae-hyun had to cup his hand over Ji-young's mouth and drag her out.
She's not well, Father. You've got to believe me. Mum, Father, Soo-hyun too. She hasn't been well lately. I'll explain everything later.
Wow, that was amazing.
I got into it. I was feeling it, you know?
Yeah.
I was feeling it.
I
Felt
could see
you.
the emotional investment.
Yeah.
I feel like you may have had some sort of experience with this, Daniel, or how is the holidays like in the UK?
Yeah, I would say it's like, I've never seen a situation where it has to be the woman who does it, but usually they will want to because they know they're going to just do better than we will.
Carlos, what about you?
But my sister, actually, she married into a very traditional family, and for a while she had a hard time with that. She had to work a lot during holidays. It was a little bit similar to what it is in Korea.
Right, and what do you think the most difficult part for her was? Is it like the physical labor, or?
I think it all comes to the nunchi, to those untold messages and what is really expected of what you should do, what you should say, and how you should act in a certain situation. It was hard for her because in our family we never really had that. And out of a sudden, in her in-laws' family, she had to follow all these unwritten rules.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why it's been so piled up on Kim Jiyoung, which is why she kind of turns into her mom, kind of almost possessed by her spirit, or I don't know what that was.
So I didn't feel like she was possessed by any spirits. I just thought she'd like reached her limit and was having a mental breakdown.
And the reaction of the other characters is very interesting. How her husband reacts, he doesn't know what to do. Probably one of the best parts of the book.
So I guess it is important to remember that, yes, there are issues that need to be resolved, but at the same time, these problems are not going to change overnight. It's going to take several generations to kind of reconcile and solve a lot of these problems. So it was encouraging to see changes, especially over the course of Jiyoung's mother's life.
Yeah.
I think she might have actually been the character, in my view, with the most growth and change over the course of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's not an overnight story. So let's get to another part of the book.
She had looked around the office one day and realized that there were no women above a certain pay grade. She spotted a pregnant woman in the company dining hall and asked the people at her table how long the company's maternity leave was, and none of the five, including one department head, knew the answer, because none of them had ever seen an employee go on maternity leave.
Let's just have a kid. If we're going to have one eventually anyway, why not avoid the lectures by just having one? We're not getting any younger.
Dae-hyun's suggestion sounded as blithe and casual as "let's try their Norwegian mackerel" or "let's do a puzzle of Klimt's The Kiss." Jiyoung explained to the best of her ability how she felt, anxious as to whether she'd be able to keep her career after having a baby, guilt over already thinking about having someone else look after their child. Dae-hyun listened attentively and nodded at the appropriate moments.
Still, think about what you'll be gaining, not just what you'll be giving up. Think how meaningful and moving it is to be a parent. And if we really can't find someone to look after the child, worst case scenario, don't worry about quitting your job. I'll take care of us. I won't ask you to go out and make money.
And what will you be giving up, Oppa?
What?
You said don't just think about what I'll be giving up. I'm putting my youth, health, job, colleagues, social networks, career plans, and future on the line. Are there things that you are scared about giving up? Becoming a father later on in the future?
Time.
Time.
If you have a kid, you have to obviously it takes an incredible amount of attention and effort. And yeah, I will miss the times where I can just chill out by myself with a beer and like a football game, or the dates I can have with my wife, or just watching Netflix together, and all that kind of all the small things that you really think, oh, I wish I could just go for one beer right now, but you can't because you don't have time. So I think time is what I would miss the most by far. How about you?
I think, well, you won't have time by yourself, but you have a lot of happy time with your kid.
Yeah.
So I try to be positive about it.
Sarah?
I guess I'm still young, and I don't feel like I need to, have a baby tomorrow. I mean, it scares me thinking about,
Why? Why do you think it scares you?
I mean, there's so much that I want to do in my career and, in school, academics, and
So do you think having a kid will hinder your studies, hinder your career and your future plans?
I think it could, and I think for a lot of people it does. My goal is to kind of get to the point where I can get help taking care of kids. I personally would not want to give up my career.
As millennials, we're also the most educated generation, which means we've had it good for the majority of our lives, and hopefully it gets better.
I think in this scene, it kind of shows that you can't really win no matter what you do. If you're working too much, then people will criticize you for not taking care of your child and not spending time with them. If you are a stay-at-home mom, people will say, oh, well, you're just mooching off of your husband. And I think you're right in that millennials are told that we can dream and we can do anything. But I feel like for a lot of women, it's like you can be or do anything, and also you have to be a mom. And to be a mom, you have to do this, this, and this. So it's like, and the standards for perfection are just so high. Like, when's the last time you heard someone use the word working dad? Like, it's just not even something that people say. Yeah. But if you're a working mom, it's like you have to do it all, be it all, and you have to do it all perfectly, or
you're not a good mom, or not a good employee.
Exactly. And it's a really hard situation to navigate because people will criticize you no matter what you do.
Yeah. there's a lot of physical qualities, a lot of things that a woman has to go through physically, but also emotionally. And then if she wants to, go on through her career life, it has to be put on hold as well. And so I wanted to open up the question of, are there these stigmas in your respective countries when it comes to married women working, pregnant women working, getting maternity leave or paternity leave and things like that?
I would say there's like a generation gap. But it's increasingly common these days for dads to be taking paternity leave. And I think it should be acceptable from both sides. Like, no, I don't think it should be down to gender. And I would say the situation in the UK right now is pretty good.
Pretty good.
The situation is in Brazil, well, it all comes to the economic situation of the family as well. Well, sometimes they just don't have the choice.
Yeah.
If both parents, they have to work, they will find a way and they will both work. Even if they have maternity leave, well, not all companies follow it. The laws are good, but in practice, things are different. But definitely the lesson that I took at least from the book regarding support is that they should not be left alone. This should not be Jiyoung's decision to work or not. She should have the choice, and well, a good choice, and the choice to work and raise her kid, but she needs support.
But let's continue reading a passage from the book. And here we're seeing how now she's a mom, and I think moms also in Korean, all around the world, really high standards. And also it's very easy to become a bad mom.
Yes.
And so that's another topic of discussion.
Jiyoung found herself deliberating over her future career again for the first time in 10 years. Whereas her priority a decade ago was her skills and interests, there were so many more variables to consider now. The most important thing was to be able to look after Jiwon as much as possible. A job that allowed her to simply send Jiwon to daycare and not hire a sitter. Jiyoung swore that if she ever came across another part-time job that offered the hours and pay she wanted, she would take it regardless of what it was.
I wonder about all the missed opportunities and the wasted talent that we had in Korea, but also in other countries that women have to go through this situation.
Yeah.
Reading the book, we see that changes have been going on. Many things improved. Jiyoung's mom's life was different from hers, and Jiwon's life will be different from Jiyoung's. But I just wish these changes could be faster. Maybe not riding a Mugunha is slow train, but that we could also have KTX for the changes relating to women, to policies to support women. I just wish we could see that. From my personal opinion, I related a lot to the book because I saw my sisters a little bit. My sisters, they were born in the late 70s, so they are a little older than Jiyoung. But I saw some situations that maybe they faced in their lives during holidays and all those things that they had to do. I don't think that women in Brazil are facing the same situation as Jiyoung right now, but I just wish things could change faster for everyone. Yeah. Well, since the publication of the book, many things changed.
Sure, yeah.
I like your point about the KTX. People just have to decide that it's important enough, and I believe it is.
Right, it's a choice to make.
One of the guys on the bench glanced over at Jiyoung and whispered something to his colleagues. Jiyoung couldn't make out every word, but you could hear bits and pieces of their conversation.
I wish I could live off my husband's paycheck, bum around and get coffee. Mom Broach's got it real cushy. No way I'm marrying a Korean woman.
Jiyoung rushed out of the park, spilling hot coffee on the back of her hand. When she told him that she hadn't eaten all day, he asked if something was wrong.
People call me Mum Roach.
Jiyoung told him what happened that day. She felt shocked and mortified at the time, and she wanted to get away that instant. But recounting the situation made her flush and her hands shook.
The coffee was 1,500 won. They were drinking the same coffee, so they must have known how much it was. Tell me, don't I deserve to drink a 1,500 won cup of coffee?
I don't care if 1,500 won or 15 million won. It's nobody's business what I do with the money my husband made. Am I stealing from you? I suffered deathly pain having our child. My routine, my career, my dreams, my entire life, myself. I gave it all up to raise our child, and I've become vermin. What do I do now?
So that word, mumroj, I've never heard that in English before. How about you?
Yeah, I think I would just translate it to a bad mom.
I guess it's like someone, allegedly, it's like someone who lets their kids run wild in the restaurant. They're just, lazing around, not doing anything about it, letting their kids bother other people, or like being obnoxious.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound like a very nice word, played that way. I used to cry a lot, apparently, so I've heard. But she's the most lovely woman. If I imagine people looking at my mum and calling her a mumroj when she's doing her best, I think it's
infuriating.
It's pretty annoying, yeah. I mean, I think for me, it just makes me a little bit upset, because I would say the women in my family, or in my childhood and throughout my life, have been extremely important to me. And I mean, I'm pretty thankful that the country I'm from is a little bit more forgiving in terms of these issues and these matters. So they've all been generally happy, and they still are generally happy. But if I try and put myself in their shoes and then imagine if they had to live their life in a culture that's a little bit different, that could be like the same way that Jiyoung had to live, it's kind of like heartbreaking to imagine that's like, could be my mom, or that could be my grandma. These are human beings, these are people, and I think it's important to try and, even if you're a male and you can't quite understand completely, it's important to try and understand and put yourself in their shoes and think like, how would I feel if I had to go through this? And yeah, it's upsetting, but like I said, I'm grateful that
Well, actually for me, reading the book, the title actually captured my attention. And if I ever met the writer, I would ask, why is it Kim Jiyoung, born 1982?
이제 남녀의 성차별이라는 거 많이 없어진 문제 아니야? 라고 이제 생각을 하는 그런 환경 위에서 자라왔던 세대들이거든요. 그런데 이제 졸업을 하고 뭐 사회로 나가서 직장을 다니고, 그리고 이 작품에서 보다 직접적으로 다루고 있는 이제 경력 단절 여성들, 결혼을 해서 아이를 낳고 육아를 하고 그런 삶의 전선으로 다시 돌아갔을 때 그 어린 시절에 자라왔었던 그 환경이 만들어 왔었던 그런 명제들이 작동하지 않는다라는 것을 느끼는데, 그 낙차가 만들어내는 새로운 절망이 있는 거고, 그렇기 때문에 좀 다른 그 토대 위에서 페미니즘을 이야기하는 거죠.
I would want to discuss with the author why they chose certain narrative structures to tell this story. I wonder how this book might have been different if it had been told through a first-person narrative.
의사의 기술이기 때문에 그 김지영 씨 얘기를 비교적 가감 없이 얘기를 하고 있고, 편견도 없이, 하지만 그럼에도 불구하고 자신의 영역 안에서 발생하는 선택해야 되는 상황에 있어서는 그 한계를 넘어서지 못하는 선택을 반복하고 있다는 게 지금 우리가 도달해 있는 그 수준을 정확하게 보여주는 지점을 상징한다고 생각합니다.
Well, in a short amount of time, we were able to have some deep discussions and look through the book as well. But before we leave, our last question, I think, would be, who would you recommend this book to?
I think that couples should read this book together. I think not only women need to read books like this, but also men. And I think they shouldn't just, read them and then put it back on the shelf. They need to talk about it. Talk about the parts that they relate to, the parts that they disagree with. Why do they disagree or agree with certain parts of it? And I think through the process of reading and critically analyzing this book, a lot of couples could learn a lot about each other and about themselves.
And about you, Carlos?
if I ever have a daughter, I would really like her to read this book. I hope the situation is better by then, but I think she should learn how the world really is and be prepared for it, be prepared to fight for it.
Well, I'd recommend it to my grandma. I think she's the person who could relate to this the most and be like, bloody men, bloody men. Oh. She's always like, oh, bloody men, we don't need you. We only need one of you. Right. Like, oh, the world would be a much more peaceful place without men. I think she'd enjoy getting worked up about something, and she does make some good points.
Get it for
I
Christmas,
might.
yeah.
I might.